Discover the sinister Heu-Heu, unveiling the cursed monster of Africa's haunted secrets. In the serene suburb of Crestwood, Claire's nights were anything but peaceful. The comforting hum of tree-lined streets was shattered by the whispers of darkness that crept in from the woods. It started small livestock vanishing from nearby farms, and eerie silhouettes flickering in the twilight. The safety of her predictable life began to crumble, leaving her grasping for truth amid the chaos. It wasn't just her overactive imagination, the unsettling feeling tugged at her heart, born from a story her enigmatic neighbor shared in hushed tones that sent chills racing down her spine. "Don't venture near the woods when twilight falls," he warned, eyes glistening with caution. The Heu-Heu seeks souls. The Heu-Heu. A name heavy with foreboding. The creature was said to guard ancient fears, holding the haunted souls of those lost beneath its shadow. One evening, Jake stumbled upon a secret meeting in the abandoned lot behind their home. His innocence pulled him into a web of secrets, where whispers spoke of the Heu-Heu and its sinister power. Between frightened glances exchanged with Mia, they spun tales that captured their youthful imaginations yet morphed into nightmares. Claire found herself battling between exhaustion and dread as her children wrestled with thoughts that sent the innocent happiness of their laughter spiraling into sinks of uncertainty. As the days passed, vibrant laughter morphed into hushed whispers and furtive glances towards the encroaching darkness. Neighborhood pets started disappearing, their absence a nail in the coffin of familiarity. Mia began waking from her dreams, cold sweat soaking her sheets, pleading with Claire to protect them from the shadows lurking at their windows. Claire brushed aside her own rising fear, attributing the disturbances to a mother's fatigue, but soon even her own appliances began to malfunction, buzzing with life as if they warned her of the evil lurking just beyond familiarity. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That fateful night, when Claire's tired eyes closed and the clock ticked into the witching hour, both children slipped beyond safety's grasp. Their giggles echoed like taunting chimes in the night. Racing heart, that was all she felt as she bolted into the dark, dread wrapping around her throat like a vice. Shadows seemed to stretch, swallowing the familiar shapes of her neighborhood. Claire could hear it then, a distant chant weaving through the rustling leaves, beckoning her toward the backyard lot. Goosebumps erupted across her skin, a primal instinct urging her to turn back, yet an unseen force propelled her forward. As she emerged onto the edge of the clearing, the twisted branches framed a horrific tableau that stole her breath. Her children stood amongst figures just beyond her reach, their laughter morphing into a discordant symphony of chaos. The realization crashed over her, this wasn't just a children's game, and the Heu-Heu's haunting presence loomed larger than she ever imagined. A choice lay before her: confront the nightmare or retreat into the fragile veil of denial. Yet, as Claire discovered the truth looming like a storm on the horizon, the laughter twisted into something far more sinister, cascading through the trees like a dark promise. The air grew colder as Claire stood rooted in the shadows, her heart thundering in her chest. The figures surrounding her children were indistinct, their shapes wavering like smoke in the dim light. Dread coiled tight in her stomach. She could barely make out the sound of the children's giggles, but now they carried an edge of frightening exhilaration that gnawed at her very core. This wasn't merely play. Something dark was happening. "Mia. Jake." She called, her voice trembling. But her words were swallowed by the whispering leaves. The figures turned slightly, silhouettes draped in shadow, their features masked. They seemed to draw closer to the children, dancing around them in unsettling circles. Claire's breath hitched. Panic clawed at her throat as she took her first tentative step forward, fear gripping her like a vice. "Mama." Mia's voice cut through the air, her tiny hand reaching out for Claire. For a moment, she felt a pulse of hope, an awakening of the protective instincts buried within. But before Claire could respond, another figure moved imperceptibly. It was taller, wider, looming with an ominous presence that sent a shiver through her bones. The Heu-Heu. It had to be. She remembered the neighbor's warning, the tales spun between fear and intrigue. This creature, born from darkness, was real, and it stood at the heart of this gathering. The figures fixed their gaze on her, eyes glinting with a predatory light, as if they anticipated her next move. Claire could feel her resolve dissolving. Get away from them. She screamed, a primal heat rising within her. Their laughter echoed back, warped into something ghastly. It's too late for that, Claire. They sang in a dissonant chorus, a sickly sweet melody that twisted around her ears. Time felt suspended, the air electric with a tension that weighed heavily as she tried to fight the paralysis creeping through her limbs. Suddenly, Mia's voice broke through the heavy air again. Mama, help. It was desperate now, a plea that shattered Claire's fragile resolve. She pushed forward, hand outstretched, desperate to reach her children. I'm coming. Hold on. And in that moment, the laughter ceased. The chill of silence fell, thick like fog around her. The figures turned, revealing faces twisted in unnatural smiles, eyes hollowed out, sockets glowing with an abyssal fire. They were not merely shapes of darkness, they were shadows of lost souls, each one a story trapped in despair. With her heart hammering violently, Claire lunged toward her children, every muscle straining against the shock of fear that wrapped around her like a shroud. But just as she was about to grasp Mia's hand, the ground beneath her feet trembled, a low rumble echoing through the trees. The Heu-Heu's looming presence shifted, as if it were awakening, as if it knew of her intentions. Instinct kicked in, and the mother inside her surged with an overwhelming force. No. You can't take them. She shouted defiantly at the Heu-Heu and its wretched followers. But instead of retreating, they drew closer, their shadows blending seamlessly with the gnarled trees, creating an inescapable net of dark intent. Join us, they whispered, the voice carrying the weight of sorrow, an invitation that chilled Claire's blood. No answer would save her now. She was out of time, but before she could retaliate, a sudden flash ignited her surroundings. An orange glow surged from the depths of the woods, illuminating the clearing just enough to reveal the horrific scene. The Heu-Heu stood now fully revealed, its dreadful visage a grotesque echo of all she had feared, twisted branches and menacing hollow eyes shining with an untamed hunger. Then, darkness engulfed her once more, the world spinning, her children's faces fading from view as her scream tore through the night, a sound lost in the cacophony of the Heu-Heu's wails. In the quiet aftermath, Claire felt herself slipping away, the forest swallowing her whole. What had she gotten herself into? And had she just lost them forever? Claire awoke abruptly, gasping for breath as if clawing her way back from the depths of a nightmare. The suffocating darkness folded around her like a blanket, but now it was thick and pulsing, alive with a dreadful energy. Her heart raced, pounding against her rib cage, and she pushed herself upright, her muscles aching as if she had been asleep for ages. Where am I? She whispered, voice hoarse, the sound swallowed by the consuming darkness. Panic washed over her. She reached out, fingers brushing the damp, cool earth beneath her. The soil was moist and foul, infused with a metallic scent that turned her stomach. Jake. Mia. Claire's voice trembled, each syllable breaking the suffocating silence. She strained her ears, hoping for a reassuring response. But there was nothing, just the rustling wind, weaving around her like mischievous fingers, and the distant echo of something that didn't belong. Suddenly, a faint flicker of light danced in the distance. The warmth illuminated the edges of the trees, casting long, eerie shadows. She staggered to her feet, footing unsure, and took a step toward the flicker. Each step felt heavy, laden with dread and uncertainty. A guttural growl reverberated through the air, causing Claire to freeze. The sound seemed to radiate from all directions, thrumming in her chest. The Heu-Heu was near, she could feel it, a breach between realms, a confrontation waiting to happen. Mama! A faint voice came from beyond the flickering light. Claire's heart leapt. It was Mia. "Keep talking, sweetheart. I'm coming." She strained her voice, breaking into a sprint toward the warmth, each footfall echoing her determination. She could see it now, a fire burning wildly, flames licking the night sky, illuminating the twisted forms of those wretched figures surrounding her children. "No!" she cried out, fear morphing into raw urgency as she dashed forward. The flames cast chaotic shadows that leaped and snarled, obscuring the horrible faces of the figures that clung to her children like a malignant fog. They danced around them, a horrific spectacle of ecstasy. "Mia! Jake!" Claire lunged toward them, adrenaline burning in her veins, but the moment her hands grasped Mia's, the world shifted again. The fire darkened, turning into black smoke that filled her lungs with bile. The figures turned their hollow eyes on her, their laughter ringing like shattered glass against her mind. "Join us," they crooned, more insistent, pulling her back as shadows swirled around her like a cyclone. In terror, Claire held tightly to Mia, trying to shield her from their grasp. But the figures closed in, powerful and relentless. The Heu-Heu's growl grew louder, a monstrous sound that made her bones rattle. "Leave them alone!" Claire screamed, fury mixing with desperation. But the words seemed to vanish, lost to the swirling darkness and sweet, sickly chant of the figures. Then she spotted Jake, frenzy shimmering in his wide eyes. "Mama, help!" he yelled, the cacophony of terror seeping into his voice, shattering her resolve like glass. Tears stung Claire's eyes. The panic and despair tightened around her like a noose. Suddenly, the shadows lunged, aiming for her children. She felt a surge of energy, the instinct to protect her own overriding everything. "Not today!" Claire cried, throwing herself in front of Mia and Jake, the very essence of her being surging through her limbs. As she did, the darkness flickered, hesitated, as if caught off guard. "Mama!" Her children wailed, but the shadows pushed against her hard, forcing her back. Fighting, she closed her eyes and gathered herself, feeling the fire burning deep within. But just as she began to chant a desperate mantra, a new voice joined the cacophony, piercing the darkness. "What have you done?" This voice resonated with authority, shaking the very ground beneath them. It tore through the Heu-Heu's whispers, commanding attention. Claire opened her eyes, searching desperately for the source, fearing her children would be lost forever. Who was this voice? And did it hold the key to their escape or their doom? The earth beneath Claire's feet throbbed, reverberating the voice that had shattered the horror's grip. "What have you done?" It echoed, alive with a power that felt almost tangible, a rogue wave cutting through a storm. She squinted into the seething darkness, searching for the figure that accompanied this commanding tone. The shadows momentarily hesitated, their grasp faltering. But just as Claire thought she could claim a moment of reprieve, a sharp pain lanced through her chest, as if a cold needle had pierced her heart. The malevolent figures hissed, their hollow eyes narrowing dangerously. "Do not resist." The command came again, more insistent this time. Claire's breath quickened, the grip around Mia and Jake tightened. "Stay close," she implored through gritted teeth, fighting the suffocating darkness. Every ounce of her willpower was bent on shielding her children from the encroaching horror. The figures surged back, their energy palpable, feeding off her fear. "Mama!" Mia's voice was a desperate plea, slicing through the dark. Claire turned, locking eyes with her daughter, whose small frame trembled beneath the weight of unseen terror. For a brief moment, the firelight flickered across Mia's pale face. It was a haunting reflection of Claire's own dread. The sinister entities danced closer, their forms shifting and writhing as if the darkness itself had sprung to life. Claire could hear low whispers, a cacophony of threats mingled with promises of eternal freedom. "Join us," they crooned again, seductive in their tone, like a dark lullaby coaxing the wayward spirits. The menacing sounds were swallowed by another sharp command, this time echoing like thunder. "Flee! Take your children!" The voice vibrated in the air, fierce with a primordial strength. Suddenly, fiery tendrils erupted from the ground where the figures lurked, scorching earth intertwining with the very shadows that had encircled them. "Mama!" Jake's cry pierced her resolve. The Heu-Heu was closing in, its growl unyielding, fueled by the chaos surrounding them. Claire felt something shift in the air, a piercing clarity amidst the storm. The entity that had spoken brought a flicker of hope, an ember against the crushing dark. "But who are you?" Claire shouted, her own voice hoarse but defiant. "What do you want from us?" Silence descended like a curtain, cutting through the madness. The growl receded, pulling back as if waiting for an answer. Meanwhile, the shadowy figures jerked momentarily, their forms wobbling in uncertainty. Then, another voice broke through, lighter yet trembling with malice, gurgling like water over stones. "She has awakened us." The Heu-Heu hungers. A shiver coursed through Claire. The knowledge spilled out of those figures like venom. The darkness was alive, a grotesque parasite, thriving on fear and despair, and they were its next meal. With renewed purpose, Claire steeled her resolve. "I want to let you take my children," she shouted into the void, her voice echoing defiantly against the circling shadows. As she gripped Mia and Jake tighter, flames at her feet roared higher, a flicker of rebellion igniting within her. It was now or never. She needed to act. But just as she summoned her strength, a hand burst through the swirling darkness to lay a bony finger on her shoulder. With horror, Claire turned to find herself face to face with a figure, a woman, gaunt and ethereal, her sunken eyes filled with dark knowledge. "You must choose. The shadows will not hold back their price," she hissed. Claire's heart raced. The choice pressed down like an anvil, relentless and unforgiving. Who was this woman? What price had to be paid? The darkness around them churned, the Heu-Heu poised to strike. The figures began to swell again, greedily pulling the void closer, as Claire stood frozen. The flames flickered, their heat waning, ready to extinguish. "Make your choice," whispered the woman, her voice dripping with foreboding. What choice loomed ahead, and at what cost? A pulse of frantic energy surged within Claire as the shadowy figures entwined closer. The woman's sunken gaze bore into her, suffocating any fleeting breaths of hope. "Choose," she rasped, the words slithering into the darkness, as if orchestrating a horrific ballet. "What choice?" Claire gasped, her voice teetering on the edge of despair. The ghastly woman grinned, revealing teeth like jagged tombstones. "To save your children or to embrace the dark?" "Never." She spat, shaking off the creeping dread. "I want to abandon my kids." With a surge of adrenaline, Claire pushed against the dark aura that sought to engulf her. It hissed in protest, the smoke swirling, angry and confused. Mia squeezed closer, her small body pressed against Claire's leg. Jake's trembling hands gripped tightly to her waist, both children oblivious to the depth of the lurking darkness. The Heu-Heu's growl intensified, an animalistic sound pulsing with hunger. Claire could feel it clawing at the edges of her psyche, urging her to falter. Yet, she stood firm. "Listen to the whispers," Claire. Another voice chimed in, smooth and slick like oil. "They will be safe if you join us." The darkness rippled with ill tidings, each figure beckoning with gestures that promised relief, sanctuary. "Just give in. No." She howled, striking the ground with her foot, sending a ripple of fire across the soil. Flames curved upwards, illuminating the children's trembling faces. In that flickering light, determination ignited in Claire. She would not surrender. Then, the gaunt woman leaned closer, her breath a chill whisper. "What cost will you bear for their safety? The shadows will devour something, you or your children. Or perhaps both." Claire recoiled. The truth sank into her bones like cold steel. What had they awakened? The perils were not merely a gamble of life and death, they were wrapped in a wicked barter of souls. Her heart raced, each beat resonating with the weight of her decisions. "Enough!" Claire screamed, summoning all the fire burning within her. She stepped into the black, challenging the figures that loomed ominously. "I will take my children, and I will free all of us from your grasp." Her voice echoed through the chaos, louder than the growling shadows. The ground shook violently as if awakening from a long slumber. Shadows slithered back, recoiling from the heat of her defiance. "You will pay dearly," the gaunt woman hissed, her voice splitting the air, wrapped tightly in rage. But something shifted. In the chaos, fiery tendrils snaked upward, wrapping around the figures, pulling them back like fishing line drawn against the resistive tide. The Heu-Heu snorted in frustration, the darkness recoiling. "Keep fighting, Mom," Jake urged, his voice cutting through the thick dread, a heartfelt charge that filled her with an electrifying courage. The gaunt woman closed in. "You think you've won? The Heu-Heu will hunger for your defiance. It is only the start." Claire's resolve hardened. She had to escape. But escape to what? The horrors promised disaster, and now the reality was slamming in on her. The blazing flames flickered for one last burst, then dimmed. The woman's bony fingers shot forward, grasping for Claire's heart, but before contact could be made, the earth rumbled again. A shadow that had been dormant burst forth, larger than life, coiling with ancient fury. A shriek echoed, raw and spine-chilling. Claire's mind raced. If she didn't act now, they would all be consumed by this darkness and the Heu-Heu's insatiable hunger. Before she could decide, the ground split beneath them. A swirling vortex yawned wide, a desperate invitation to plunge into oblivion. "Jump!" Claire shouted, her instincts overriding every ounce of fear. As she grabbed Mia and Jake's hands, the chaos erupted into a cacophony of screams and shadows. What awaited them on the other side of this abyss? Could they escape the Heu-Heu, or had they only drawn closer to its dreadful maw? They tumbled through the darkness, the noise of chaos swallowed by a suffocating silence. Claire's heart drummed in her ears as they descended, spinning, weightless. Clutching her children, she could feel the warmth of their bodies, the reality of their presence grounding her amidst the dread. The darkness thickened, a living thing that grasped and pulled at them with icy tendrils. Just when it felt like it would crush her inside out, the fall ended. They hit the ground with a thud, a swirl of dust and despair enveloping them. Claire coughed, blinking against the stinging grit in her eyes, her body aching from the impact. "Mama!" Mia whimpered, clutching her mother's arm. Jake cleared the dust from his face, eyes wide with fear. "Where are we?" he asked, trembling. The shadows had lost no time, creeping at the edges of her mind, whispering fears that curdled her insides. Claire pushed herself up, scanning their new surroundings. They were in a cavernous space, an underground hollow lit only by the dim glow of phosphorescent moss clinging to the damp stone walls. It felt ancient, as if they had plunged into the very heart of the earth. The air was thick, suffocating, it tasted like decay. Above, faint echoes of distant howls reverberated, like mournful ghosts. Claire's heart sank. "I don't know," she admitted, fear pinching her throat. But there was no time to linger on the uncertainty. The Heu-Heu's growls echoed in the distance, a reminder that they were being hunted. Claire took a deep breath, summoning courage from the pit of her belly. "We have to move. Stay close." She led her kids toward the flickering light of the moss, their footsteps muffled against the cold ground. The hush around them was deceptive. Claire's skin prickled as if they were being watched. Dark shapes lurked in the corners of her vision, fleeting and sinister. "Mama?" Jake's voice trembled. "What if the bad people come after us?" His question ripped through her like a knife. The memory of the gaunt woman's watery gaze loomed in her mind, those wicked teeth glinting. "We'll fight, Jake. We're together. That's all that matters." But as they moved deeper into the cavern, their safe little bubble of hope began to fray. The path twisted and turned, leading them into a sprawling network of tunnels, all stained by shadows and echoed cries. Mia stumbled, and Claire knelt beside her, brushing her hair back. "Just a bit further," she urged, voice steady despite the panic clawing at her heart. "We'll find a way out." But the path began to narrow, the stone around them tightening like a vice. Something dripped from the ceiling, an ominous rhythm breaking the silence. Claire looked up, feeling the cold drop splash against her neck. Blood. And no. She gasped, realization crashing down. Something's down here with us. Just as her dread solidified into a real terror, the dark trembled. A rumble like thunder shook the ground. The Heu-Heu was close, closer than ever. Run! Claire cried. The echo of her voice rippled through the tunnels, and they fled blindly, heartbeats racing in sync. The flickering light of the moss faded behind them, swallowed by encroaching black. They turned another corner and stumbled onto a wide chamber lit by an eerie, pulsating glow. A massive creature, slithering and looming, its eyes glowing like coals in the murk, waited. The Heu-Heu had found them at last. "Mom, it's so big," Jake whispered, pulling back as terror blossomed on his face. The creature's growl reverberated, a predatory promise of what awaited them if they didn't escape. "Don't look at it," Claire urged, turning them away. "We need to find a way out. This can't be where it ends." But as she searched, the overwhelming presence of the Heu-Heu seemed to close in around them. It wouldn't give up easily. The walls around them began to slide closer, the darkness hungry to consume their light. "What do we do?" Mia cried, tears streaking her cheeks. Claire's mind raced. They could cower and succumb or fight back. She knew the shadows would never let them go. They had to find a way to turn the darkness against itself. The Heu-Heu had to have a weakness. The creature's growl deepened, the air thick with dread. "Together," Claire whispered fiercely. "On 3. Mom." Jake's uncertainty echoed in the stillness. 3. The chamber shuddered as they launched forward, plunging deep into the unknown once again, carving their fates against the tide. What if darkness held more than just fear? What secrets would the Heu-Heu reveal? They rushed forward, propelled by instinct and fear. Claire's lungs burned as the shadowy maw of the Heu-Heu lingered behind, a living nightmare. Every step echoed in her ears, an ominous countdown pushing her on. Water dripped steadily from the low ceiling, each drop a heartbeat that resonated in the thick, humid air. "Mama, I can't keep going," Mia whimpered, her small legs faltering. Claire halted, whipping around to face her children. They were pale, haunted. "Just a bit more, sweetheart. I promise." Claire's voice fought against the terror knotting in her gut. She wrapped an arm around Mia, urging them both into motion. Jake was at her side, eyes wide, scanning for the horrific creature that prowled just out of sight. They hurried deeper into the tunnel, where the flickering lights of the moss sprinkled pleading rays across the dark, revealing lopsided alcoves and jagged rock formations. Claire's heart raced. Each corner they turned held breathless suspense. She could almost feel the Heu-Heu's hot breath on her neck, radiating rage and hunger. Then, up ahead, she spotted something alight. Bright and steady, unlike the moss. Claire's heart surged with adrenaline. "There!" she shouted, nudging her kids forward. As they rounded a bend, the narrow passage opened into another vast chamber, not unlike the last, but this one pulsated with sickly green light. In the center of the room lay an old altar, drenched in shadows and gore. Strange symbols carved deep into the stone seemed to writhe and shimmer as they drew closer, like the snakes of Medusa's tail coming to life. "Mama!" Jake gasped, pointing to the shadows beneath the altar. The remnants of offerings lay scattered, a collection of rotting bones and malformed trinkets. Claire's throat tightened, a scream caught deep in her chest. They halted just outside the altar's circle of light, each breath heavy with dread. "What is this place?" Mia whispered, her small hand squeezing Claire's. "Maybe it's a way to stop it," Claire managed, her mind racing. Faint whispers brushed against her ears, unintelligible yet tinged with malice. The Heu-Heu's growl faded into a low hum, as if it was watching them, waiting for a misstep. Suddenly, the walls began to pulse, thrumming with energy. Shapes stirred in the periphery, dark forms skittering just beyond her sight. "It's coming!" Claire shouted, adrenaline surging through her veins. In an instant, their urgency turned into frantic action. "We need to find something, a weapon, anything," Claire cried, tearing at the offering strewn across the altar. In her frantic search, her fingers grazed over something smooth and cold, a bone blade, its edge glimmering with an unnatural sheen. She grasped it tightly. "Mama, look out!" Jake screamed as the shadows coalesced into a massive shape, the Heu-Heu lunging from the darkness, its eyes burning brighter than before. Claire spun, brandishing the blade. "Back! Get back!" she shouted, her fear morphing into fierce determination. The Heu-Heu paused, its growl shifting to a deep, resonant hum that reverberated through the chamber. An eerie calm settled, as if the creature was contemplating its next move. But Claire felt it, the power of the altar, the swirling energy. She thrust the blade toward the creature. "We're not afraid of you." And just like that, the echo of her challenge shattered the gloom, igniting the Heu-Heu's rage anew. With a roar that shook the very stones, the creature surged, a living shadow, darker than the abyss itself. Claire's heart thudded painfully as they braced themselves for what was to come. Time slowed. The blade glinted like a fallen star caught in the darkness, but would it be enough to fend off the malevolence? "Mom!" Mia's voice quaked, dripping with desperation. Just as the Heu-Heu lunged, the chamber exploded into chaos. Shadows wrestled for dominance, the altar blazed with light, and Claire screamed, the sound lost amidst a cacophony of terror. As she plunged into darkness once more, one thought pierced through the chaos: what if the Heu-Heu was not just a terrifying predator but an embodiment of the place itself? As the dust settled, only silence remained, thick and suffocating. What secrets awaited them in the void? The sensation of weightlessness enveloped Claire, pulling her deeper into the abyss. She felt the cold brush of stone against her skin, the chill spreading like a vine coiling around her heart. Silence pressed in, dense and stifling, wrapping around her like fog. "Mama?" Mia's tiny voice echoed into the emptiness, fragile and distant. Claire's instincts jolted her upward, darkness swirling around her as she fought against an invisible current. With immense effort, she clawed her way back to consciousness, each movement heavy with dread. She awoke to flickering shadows that danced on rough stone walls, the air heavy with the scent of wet earth and rot. The altar glimmered ahead, its symbols now a swirling mass of colors, almost alive. "Mama, what happened?" Jake stood beside Mia, their wide eyes reflecting terror mixed with confusion. Claire sat up, rubbing her head. I don't know." Panic surged as she scanned the chamber, still feeling the Heu-Heu's presence lurking at the edges of her mind. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled. The walls groaned and shifted, the symbols etched into the altar flickering ominously. "We need to move," Claire urged, dragging her children toward the edges of the chamber. But something held them back, a rippling energy pulsating from the altar. The symbols began to resonate, thrumming like a heartbeat, and Claire felt it seep into her bones, trying to pull her closer. "Mama, I don't like it here," Mia whimpered, clinging to Claire's leg. "Me neither," Jake added, his voice barely a whisper. Claire's heart raced. The whispers returned, louder this time, weaving into their thoughts like vines tightening around their minds. "He knows you," they hissed, circling her, taunting. "Join us or perish." Claire gripped the bone blade tighter, its smooth surface grounding her in reality. "We want to be part of this," she shouted, surprising even herself with the strength of her voice. Suddenly, a shadow seemed to leap from the altar, a twisting figure of darkness that rose to impossible heights, taking on the shape of the Heu-Heu. Its malevolent eyes burned through the haze, fixing upon Claire, and in that moment, she understood the altar wasn't just a destination, it was a crux of choices. "Only one can survive," the whispers echoed, a sadistic glee lacing their tone. The Heu-Heu raised a claw, and the very air crackled with a primordial energy, a choice that demanded a sacrifice. A chill tore through her. "No!" Claire cried, but deep down, a splintering fear gnawed at her. Could the Heu-Heu somehow be her only path to freedom? The thought crashed against her mind like a tidal wave, almost drowning her in despair. "Mama!" Jake grasped her hand. "We need to go." She hesitated, torn between holding on to her children and embracing whatever ancient power the altar promised. The Heu-Heu loomed closer, a grotesque smile twisting across its monstrous features. Time seemed to hang in a fragile balance as Claire fought for clarity. Then, from the depths of the altar, she glimpsed something, a faint light, flickering with hope amidst the shadows. "Jake, Mia." She pulled them closer. "We have to reach that light. Trust me." But as they sprinted toward it, the shadows began to swirl violently, an angry storm brewing around them. The Heu-Heu shrieked, a sound that pierced right through Claire's core, sending icy tendrils of terror racing down her spine. Would the light be salvation or a trap? With a final surge of determination, they raced forward, the darkness howling in defeat behind them. As they reached the light, a blinding flash erupted, engulfing the chamber in an ethereal glow, and Claire realized, the altar was awakening, and the true test was only just beginning. What awaited them in that blinding radiance? Would it free them from the Heu-Heu's grasp, or lead them deeper into the nightmare? The light engulfed them, consuming all shadows in its brilliance. Claire felt a rush of warmth, unlike the biting cold that had clung to them moments before. But that relief was short-lived. The air around them thickened again, trembling with energy as the altar pulsed like a beating heart. "Mama!" Jake's voice cracked as he peered into the brightness. His small hand was trembling in hers, and Claire could feel his fear radiating off him like heat from an open flame. Suddenly, the light dimmed to a ghostly glow, an unsettling gray that crept back into the corners of the chamber. The whispers returned, lower and more insistent. "You run, but you cannot hide, Mama. What do we do?" Mia's voice quivered, her eyes wide with terror as she looked up at Claire. "We fight," Claire replied, trying to steady her own breath, feeling the thundering of her heart drown out the whispers for a moment. "No matter what happens, we stay together." As Claire took a step forward, the altar shuddered. The symbols etched into it flared to life, each pulse accompanied by a guttural growl that reverberated through the stone. The Heu-Heu's form twisted anew, merging with the fading light, its edges blurring to create a monstrous silhouette. The ground bucked beneath them, and Claire stumbled, nearly losing her grip on Jake and Mia. Panic clawed at her throat, but determination surged in its place. "Hold on to each other," she shouted, trying to drown out the rising swell of dread. From the depths of the altar, an enticing melody broke free, sweet and sinister, wrapping around them like a noose. Claire's vision blurred, lured into the trance-like whispers. They were sweet words of promise, freedom, power, safety. "Join us live without fear, no," Claire shouted, shaking her head violently to dispel the fog of temptation. She gripped the bone blade even tighter, its surface warming in her hand. "Stand together." But shadows slithered from the edges of the chamber, reaching toward her children. They were snaking tendrils of darkness, whispering malevolently, promising a life free from pain. Jake gasped as one shadow wrapped around his ankle, pulling him toward the altar. "Mama!" he cried, horror painted across his face. "Jake!" Claire lunged for him, the ground shifting beneath her feet, making her struggle to maintain her balance. As she reached for him, she felt static crackle in the air, thrumming with an ancient energy that threatened to rattle her bones loose. "Mama, help!" Mia screamed. She clutched at the braid in Claire's hair, her small weight almost being knocked off balance. In that moment, Claire's heart shattered. She could feel the pull of the shadows trying to isolate them, tear them apart. Rage mixed with her fear, fueling her resolve. "Not today," she hissed, lunging toward Jake. With all her strength, she swung the bone blade at the dark tendril gripping him. The blade sliced through the darkness like thunder through a storm, severing its hold. Clutching Jake tightly, she pulled him away just as the tendril recoiled, screeching back into the shadows, its retreat accompanied by an anguished wail, but the victory felt fleeting. The Heu-Heu howled, the altar thundering with fury. "Your will is weak. You cannot escape." Claire's chest heaved as she pulled Jake and Mia closer to her. They needed to find a way out, a clear path through the chaos. But as she turned to find it, the altar warped, the glow spreading to engulf the entire chamber. Trust, the whispers echoed. Surrender, no. Claire bellowed, kicking against the shadows wrapping around her feet. We won't give in. The altar groaned louder, colossal shadows swirling into a vortex around them. The children were now tugging at her, desperate, their small bodies trying to pull her toward the light, toward safety, but what twisted secrets lay within that brightness? What awaited them there? With a final push, Claire charged ahead, the bone blade raised, destiny colliding with terror. What emerged from that light would determine not just their fate, but the Heu-Heu's final, unimaginable design. The brilliant light engulfed them all at once, a blinding surge that felt like liquid warmth, pushing back against every shadow, every whisper that tried to creep into Claire's heart. It became a cocoon, wrapping them tenderly but firmly, restoring the hope that had dimmed beneath layers of dread. Claire steadied herself, feeling the warmth radiate through her fingers, keeping her children close. Mama! What is happening? Jake asked, his small voice wavering with a mix of fear and curiosity. We're breaking free. Claire responded, her own voice filled with fierce determination. Stay with me. As the light intensified, shadows shrieked like caught insects, twisting and writhing against all that was good. Claire could sense the Heu-Heu somewhere in that chaotic dark, its growl now an agonized roar. It didn't like losing control. Push forward. Claire urged, their hands clasped together. She felt her heart pounding, each beat a reminder of their unity in the face of overwhelming odds. The altar exploded in a whirl of luminous colors, like the dawn breaking over a long, dark night, revealing an intricate labyrinth of symbols pulsing with energy. Together, hold tight. Claire squeezed her children's hands, and they pressed forward into the light. The warmth of hope clashed violently against the frigid grasp of darkness, each step illuminating pieces of the truth hidden within the depths. The Heu-Heu's fundamental essence was not just terror. It was forged from the very shadows of despair and loss. You cannot escape. Its voice thundered, but Claire felt defiance coursing through her veins. Let go. She screamed into the chaos, breaking the darkness's hold on her family. With each word, the power of the altar reverberated beneath them, as if it recognized Claire's resolve. The symbols flickered, responding to her candor. And suddenly, the shadows recoiled, bending to accommodate the light spreading through the chamber. The realization crashed upon her, the Heu-Heu fed off loneliness and grief, longing and despair. What it feared most was unity, real love, real hope binding them together. And Claire understood, she had to transform that truth into action. Let us face it together. She shouted, emboldened and clear. Light will always triumph over darkness. We won't let it win. Her triumphant conviction struck the room like a bolt of lightning. Their combined strength sparked into bright flames, radiant and consuming, shadows melted in its presence, screams turning to anguished cries echoing into oblivion. Her children's faces reflected her fierce spirit, Mia nodding with dawning understanding, Jake gritting his jaw, his grip tightening on the bone blade Claire still wielded. In solidarity, they stood firm. Just then, the Heu-Heu charged, a horror manifest. Its shadowy limbs reached for them with monstrous quickness, seeking to snatch them away before the light consumed it completely. Now! Claire shouted, and her children surged forward alongside her, raising the bone blade toward the creature. As they struck the blade against the altar's edge, it ignited, unleashing a blinding white torrent that exploded outward. Surging light engulfed the Heu-Heu, wrapping it in tendrils of energy, binding it tight against the altar's will. It thrashed terrifically, but the power of unity held strong, illuminating every crevice of darkness in its path. Feel our strength. Claire called, channeling all the hope, love, and determination she had ever held. Their collective spirit resonated through the air, amplifying the altar's power. The Heu-Heu howled in surrender, its form dissipating into swirling shadows, then vanishing entirely in a desperate gasp. With its defeat, the cavern trembled. The altar pulsated one last time before settling into quietude. Calm washed over the chamber, illuminating their world once more, clearing the darkness away completely. Together, they breathed out a sigh of relief. Did we win? Mia whispered, hesitant hope gracing her words. Claire knelt, pulling them both into a fierce embrace. We did, my loves. We faced the darkness together, and we conquered it. With the Heu-Heu gone, and the weight of despair lifted, a gentle, natural light emerged from the cavernous ceiling, spilling across their faces with soft warmth. Beyond the darkness lay a path, a tunnel slowly revealing a way back to the surface. Let us go home. Claire led the way, heart lightening with every step, the sound of laughter slowly rising behind them, growing stronger, more vibrant, intertwined with echoes of joy and unbreakable love. They emerged into the soft glow of twilight, the serenity of the Crestwood neighborhood surrounding them once more. Claire looked at her children, their faces brimming with relief and hope. We're safe now. Nothing can harm us. Not anymore. Remember this moment, always. As she watched her children scamper ahead, laughter trailing behind them, Claire felt the last remnants of fear dissolve. And somewhere in the distance, from the depths of the forest, a whisper lingered, "Join us," but this time, it was met with silence, the familiar cadence of home wrapping around her heart like a familiar blanket, and as the sun set on Crestwood, a new day waited, bright and filled with the promise of hope, where all shadows had been swept away. Now you've experienced this thrilling journey. But don't let it end here. You need to subscribe now to catch more exclusive stories, smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep the adventure going, flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild conclusion. I want to hear from each of you, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support makes all the difference.